Hello and welcome back to our series of lectures on the respiratory system. In this lecture, we are going to be talking about gas laws. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying the reason we're going over gas laws is that you need to have some understanding of gas laws in order to understand the function of the respiratory system. So you need to know how gases behave in order to understand the basis for the movement of gases both into and out of our lungs and also into and out of our bloodstream. Okay, so that's why we're going over gas laws. I'm going to start by talking about gases and pressure. So what is a gas? What is pressure? Okay, so a gas has no fixed volume or shape. So that's as opposed to a solid, which has a fixed volume and a fixed shape, or a liquid, which has a fixed volume but no fixed shape. Okay, so that's what a gas is. Okay. Pressure is the force of the gas molecules colliding with each other and with their container. Okay, so looking here, we have our little molecules in red. They are bouncing off of each other and off of their container that they are in, thereby creating pressure. Okay. We measure pressure in millimeters of mercury, and the pressure of our atmosphere is about 760 millimeters of mercury. So this is how we denote atmospheric pressure with a big P and a little ATM, okay? I also just want to mention that we sometimes set atmospheric pressure to 0 for reference. So we like just set that as our reference point and then measure relative to that. Okay, so now we're ready to go over the gas laws. I want to remind you that these are laws that govern the behavior of gases, and we need to understand them in order to understand how gases are going to be behaving in our bodies, okay? There are 5 gas laws listed in this table, but we're only going to go over 3 of them. Basically, numbers 2 and 3 are sort of extensions of number 1. So we're just going to talk about number 1. So let's do that. So let's start with Dalton's law. Okay, so Dalton's law states that the total pressure of a mixture of gases is the sum of the pressure of the pressures of the individual gases. Okay, so to break that down, basically air is a mixture of a bunch of different gas species, right? So we have oxygen, we have carbon dioxide, we have nitrogen, etc. Each of those gas species is going to have its own contribution to the total pressure in the atmosphere, okay? So a certain gas species pressure contribution to the total atmosphere is referred to as the partial pressure. Okay, so partial pressure of oxygen is the pressure that oxygen contributes to the overall atmospheric pressure. Okay, if we take the partial pressures of all of the gases in the atmosphere and we add them up, we will end up with the overall atmospheric pressure. Okay. All right, so as I mentioned before, the total atmospheric pressure is 760 millimeters of mercury. That's at sea level, okay? And then these are our typical partial pressures of the gases in our atmosphere. So I want to point out a few things. First of all, nitrogen, which I actually had to add to this table, is actually has the highest contribution to the atmosphere. So it makes up 78% of the gases in our atmosphere. And that comes out to a partial pressure of 593 millimeters of mercury. Oxygen makes up about 21% of our atmosphere, and it has a partial pressure of about 160 millimeters of mercury. Carbon dioxide makes up 0.03% of our atmosphere, and the partial pressure is 0.25 millimeters of mercury. I do want to point out that these partial pressures are going to change With temperature, they actually also change with elevation. And then finally, I want to say that these partial pressures are in dry air, so air without any water in them. If we add water to the atmosphere, which actually there is water in the atmosphere, um, then the values of these go down. So water will have its own partial pressure that it contributes, and then the other gases partial pressures will go down um, to uh, to compensate, not really to compensate, but um, just sort of proportionally.